I hope on this icy, sleety, or snowy Sunday morning that you're doing well. Obviously, we had to cancel church because of the ice, and so I thought I'd join you this morning. And we're going to talk about our children's temperament. Yay! We've been looking at getting to know our children and different aspects of that. And today we're going to dive into this temperament study. And I love this subject. My oldest daughter and I, in particularly, we enjoy it to the point where probably drive everybody else nuts. But this is where this book comes from, or this is the information comes mainly from this book, Understanding Your Child's Temperament by Beverly LaHaye. And her husband, Tim LaHaye, wrote one, Spirit Controlled Temperaments. And so the words, the vocabulary that I will be using, and the things within this illustration and the illustrations and some of the explanations are going to be coming from the LaHays. And so I hope that you can gain that. I think a precursor to what we're going to be doing, I'm going to show you a chart and then I'll show it to you again later on into the lesson. But this is a chart and it kind of explains what we're going to be talking about. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, so you can refer back to it as I'm using some of the terms and different things like that, then it will be helpful for you. We will be talking about the chloric, the sanguine, which are your extroverted personalities. That means they like people, right? We're going to be talking about the melancholy and the phlegmatic, and these are your people that are introverted. They're not too much on being around people. These two, the chloric and the melancholy, are task oriented. They like getting tasks completed. Where your sanguine and your phlegmatic are people oriented. So this is where we're going to be with our children, and we're going to be talking about our children and within this ideas, I guess you could say. Some things to note before we get started. This will help you if you've ever wondered, why does your child act the way he or she does? Do you need help with loving discipline that actually gets to the heart and is effective? Do you need something to help you pull your family together, to unify your family, to understand the differences, to help your sibling, to help the sibling group, your brothers and sister groups, to really love each other? Because you have to teach your children to love each other. You have to help them understand each other. You have to help them understand their dad, help them understand you, why you're so different than them, and what that is and what that looks like. That's how you keep a family unified and you help sibling relationships. They need to understand. Learning a temperament is a great place to start. And as Christians, this is a really great thing because, especially in Tim LaHaye's book, The Spirit Controlled Temperament, because you really take a deep dive into who you are. And I recommend that book first before you do your children, because you need to know who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and how to pray and ask God to help you in those weaknesses to understand. I'm a sanguine, so I'm a people pleaser. I'm a people person. I'm sanguine melancholy, actually. I'm a hot mess because I'm both extroverted and introverted and people oriented and task driven. So I'm a little hot mess there. But the point of that is I learned through doing that study that my people pleasing can get out of hand, that we tend to stretch the truth a lot, not because we want to be liars, it's just because we're people pleasers. So as you're telling a story and the people are into it, then you want to make it bigger and more exciting. Oh, that's a sin. That's a sin. And I had to really learn about myself and what that looked like as a mom. Then I started digging into what that looked like in my children. And it was very eye-opening to help them to understand because I just taught it to them. This is why you are. When I went through this, my children were older. And I think if your children are around, 9, 10, 11, you can really start teaching these things to them. And if they're preteens, it is definitely the time to begin really talking about their temperaments and their personalities and why they're like they are and why certain people get on their nerves and how they can avoid that and things like that. A child's temperament, through study and observation, they believe that you can really begin to tell as young as 2 and 3. A lot of times you can tell in babies. My oldest daughter, Becca, and I talk about this so much. And like I said, we get on everybody's nerves with this because we just love it. But my youngest grandchild, Bear Bear, is such a sanguine. It is so funny to watch this kid. He's so happy. He smiles all the time. Even when he's sick, he's just smiling. Um, he looks at his older brother and sister who are not. They're more stoic, right? More serious. But he smiles at everybody at church. Everybody at church loves him. He's just happy. He's got some of the good qualities and some of the bad, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And he's a little over a year old, and we can already tell that. So I think sometimes you can tell when they're younger as well, especially if it's something like sanguine, because it's going to come out. They're the kids are sitting in the grocery carts going, "Hey, hey!" Yeah, you can tell them. They're pretty common to pull out. Remember, no one is one single temperament. We're usually a unique combination of at least two, and sometimes you have three. Also, children have immature characteristics, so it's hard for you to really tell 100%, because they may just be immature. And they're still developing. They're born genetically with the temperament, though. I need you to, that was something that really helped me. You could say, oh, she acts just like her daddy. And that's what people have always said about me. Yeah, I was just like my daddy. Or they are just like their grandparents. That is so funny, right? Have you ever heard the old saying, some children just spoil easier? Or how about this one? That's a hard-headed kid. Or that baby is the sweetest, that's the best baby. It just kind of goes with the flow. I could do anything with this child, but boy, my number one or my number two child, oh, I couldn't go anywhere. They screamed all the time. Yeah, temperaments, right? Good to know. Life can alter our temperaments too. Abuse, tragedy, any of those things can subdue personalities. So the four basic temperaments, like I just showed you, is the sanguine, choleric, melancholy, and phlegmatic. Now we're going to go through each of these because the sanguine is talkative and fun-loving child. A choleric is very independent, self-sufficient child. I can do it myself. And they get very like, I can do it myself, right? And I have a couple grandbabies like that, which is so funny because all of my children are choleric. They're choleric with other things mixed in. Their daddy's a strong choleric. My mother's choleric. Their grandfather on their dad's side was a strong choleric. So choleric is very strong in our family, right? So all of my kids have some form of choleric about them. And so it's only funny to me that they have had children that are choleric as well. And it's just so funny. It's really coming out in some of my grandbabies. My oldest daughter, Florence, she's so precious. I love her. I see certain things about her, it just cracks me up because she can do it herself. She is too, and I'm telling y'all, she wants to, help clean. She wants to dress herself. She wants to feed. She wants to help prepare. She's right there with her mom. I mean, it's just so funny. She's like, people look at her and like, how old is she? Is she like 5? I mean, she can do things, because she's very independent. Her mom was the same way. And I love that. Her mom's choleric. And I love that. Her mom's a choleric phlegmatic. I think little Florence, we're still thinking about it, but I think she's a choleric sanguine. Or maybe a choleric melancholy or a choleric sanguine melancholy. I don't know. We'll wait and see what comes around there as she develops because she does like people. She's more outgoing. And so, I don't know. It's kind of funny. But those are cholerics or independent. Then you have your melancholy kids who are usually very gifted musically, faithful. They're faithful friends, faithful spouses, faithful to they're very faithful people. Very detail oriented. These are the people that are good in jobs, teachers, anything that's meticulous that they have to, work at. Now they don't like people. They don't like working with people. So that you could put them in a workshop if they're strong melancholy. It's my second one. I have I like being by myself sometimes, but I have to have people as well. But they can accomplish a lot, and it's going to be perfect because they have to have things lined up in a perfect order or a perfect thing. Chaos drives them nuts, right? So, but they also can become depressed easily. So we'll talk more about them. And then you have your phlegmatic, and they're just patient, easygoing. They're usually your peacemakers. They can step back and look at things, right? So my husband and I are a hot mess because I'm a sanguine melancholy and he's a phlegmatic chloric. So we have all four personality temperaments. We don't share any because I kid, my kids kid me and I kid all the time. I have zero phlegmatic. I wished I had phlegmatic in me. Matter of fact, when I have to pray and ask God to help me spiritually, to be spirit filled and phlegmatic, meaning just let it go. Just let it go. Be easy going. Just it's not the end of the world, you know. And the older I get, the better I'm getting at that. But it's funny. My husband he's a great leader, and because he's phlegmatic, he's a great peacemaker. He's a great mediator, but he's also, I'll get to that later, or I'll get to that later, and then 10 years or 5 years later, things are still not done, right? So it drives melancholies crazy because we want things done yesterday. Like we're going to do it, like preparing for the storm. I'm just driving people crazy. So we're going to dive in to look at each of these a little bit better and kind of get it. Now that you've known a little bit, I'm going to show you the chart one more time, just in case the first time you thought I was crazy and you weren't going to need it. Okay, I hope you can see it. All right. Give you time to take a picture or do whatever you need to do. Okay. So let's jump in. Sanguine. Friendly, steady stream of talking. I can pick these out. I mean, they remind me of myself as a kid. I've had several students that I just laugh at. They're just fun and they just talk a lot. And like I said, these are the little toddlers or kids. They're in a grocery store and they're talking to everybody. Hey, how are you today? What's your name? What do you do? Just cheerful disposition. Everyone loves them. Usually the loudest kid in the room. I never got recess in fifth grade. My fifth grade teacher and I just did, our personality temperaments did not mix at all. And I had to write, I will not talk in class because I was being the clown, right? And so usually they are. They like an audience. They have short attention spans, short interest spans. A lot of them are diagnosed ADD. It's not ADD for them. It's just the way they are. They have to move and they get bored easily. The world is their stage. They will perform at the hat. I was talking about my baby bear. I kept him yesterday, and it was so cute because if he thinks that you're laughing at him or if he's entertaining you, he's going to continue. And he's just a baby, but it's so funny. These are the kids, they act now and they think later. So they're your daredevils, your climbers. They have a hard time playing alone. They do not want to play by themselves. They want to play with other kids. Now, if they're playing with another kid and they get mad, they're going to explode because they have explosive tempers. But they're quick to apologize and move on. It's so funny. My Hannah, Barrett's mom, was a lot like this. And we get so tickled at her because she would just get angry at her sister or her brothers and just, bah. But then within 10 minutes, she was fine. She's like, hey, and my melancholy chloric Becca would be like, oh no, because they hang on to it, right? And I'm melancholy and sanguine, so I could let go sometimes, but sometimes I want to dwell on it too, which is sometimes sin can be a sin and create bitterness, and I've had to work on that. But they usually can just, whatever. And we'll get another example here in a minute of them, but that's kind of giving you an idea. These are eager to please. These are the kids in a classroom. They talk all the time. They drive you nuts, but you love them because they're so cheerful and sweet, and they're eager to help. Miss, can I help you with this? Miss Wheeler, can I help you with this? I'll pass out that, Miss Wheeler. I'll carry it for you. They're just so eager to please, and they want you to be proud of them. They get their feelings hurt easily. They love deep and they hurt deep. And so if their love language is words like mine, it really is sad because these are the kids that come home all the time crying. I came home every day. My feelings got hurt so easily. And I look back and I think God was preparing me to be tougher. I know my mom got me this little thing to hook on my backpack. So when I felt alone and I felt like I didn't have any friends, that I could hold on to that and remember she was praying for me. So just know that that's part of who they are. They get caught up in stories, like I said, and they can seem like they're bragging or exaggerating and lying, but it's just they're trying to please you and they want you to see them in a different way. These kids can get punished and be sad for it, but then within a minute or two, you're going to hear them humming and they're okay. They just look at the world in a different way. Usually they're very spiritually minded. I know of my kids, Hannah, my sanguine, was my most spiritually minded kid. They have compassionate hearts. They respond well to those who love them. But as a teenager, be warned, because sanguine teens, because they are people pleasers, they tend to be followers and they want to please people. So you really have to watch them carefully because they're not leaders naturally. And so they're going to follow. And so you really got to be careful with them. Because if they don't feel loved or if they don't feel accepted, they will become sullen. They will withdraw. And it can hinder them. And then they're going to seek out things. If parents are too busy fighting or working or ignore them, these are the kids you've got to really look out for. You got to make sure that they know that they're loved, that they're accepted, going back to the love languages. And you got to really spend some time getting to know them and encouraging them and give them that quality people thing there, because if not, they're going to find it from somebody, because sanguines need people. If you're a parent and you don't understand that, my husband and I both, I understand the need for people, but I have two kids that do not have melancholy. So Caleb and Hannah both are sanguine chlorics. And they need people in a different way than I do, because I have melancholy in me, so I can pull away big time. And my Becca is a melancholy phlegmatic, and she doesn't need people. Like, she's perfectly fine by herself and thinks her other siblings that need people are crazy, right? And Sam's a chloric phlegmatic, so he needs people some, but not a lot. He can also pull away very easily. But I watch Hannah and Caleb, they thrive on being with people. They need it. It's like a need in them. And when they were young, that's one of the reasons why I quit homeschooling Hannah as a teenager, because she came to me and she needed school. She needed people, right? So just know that about them. You don't want them to become withdrawn. I'm going to give you an example. You have two children punished for outright disobedience, sent to their rooms until they can quit crying, right? The sanguine's going to stay in the room for maybe a minute. Then they're finished crying. They're outside playing, swinging, singing, Jesus loves me, their world's fine, because they're able to let it go. The chloric child, which is our next temperament we're going to be talking about, will sit in that room for 15 or 20 minutes crying, complaining loudly, screaming, whatever, if they're not talking. And then they'll come out and they'll quit crying, but they're going to be in a bad mood. They're going to be anything but happy. They're going to be drooping around. If they're old enough, they're going to be like, I really deserve that punishment. I wouldn't. Go for it. Because remember, they're independent and they don't see what they did was all that wrong. You will know a chloric because by two, they're doing things independently, like I talked about my little Florence, that other children won't even try to do until later. They want to do it. They want to be independent. They want to have that authoritativeness within their realm. I see this in my classroom a lot. I have a kid this year who I love. I love all my kids. They're just precious. But this particular young man, the way he thinks, he's such a strong chloric that I tell his parents all the time, he's going to be like somebody someday. I've never had a 9-year-old that's thinking like 3 or 4 steps ahead and already accomplishing tasks and seems to be so independent and likes to be that way, right? It's just who they are. They just have a determined spirit. These are the people that, they're going to get a task. They're task oriented. You put them in charge, they're going to mow over you. You either get with them or get out of the way because they're going to get that task accomplished, right? They're chlorics. Unlike the phlegmatic child who's going to quietly and stubbornly disobey you, do their own thing, and disobey and do his own thing. The chloric child's going to be loud and angry. So you got a phlegmatic child. Now, I had one of those by Sam, who we would get on to him and he would smile, but then he would get in trouble because he had what we call a quiet rebellion at times. They're still disobeying you. They're just doing it under the radar. They're quietly, but they're doing it anyway. And that is just as bad. You got to catch that. Where chloric, you're gonna know. I mean, they're gonna give you their opinion really quickly. They're gonna be loud. They're gonna be angry. They're gonna proclaim their disapproval. Things are gonna come out of their mouth. They're gonna look at you and say, "Be quiet," because to them, they're independent and they're stubborn, and they think they're on the same level as you. And you have to quickly say, "Excuse me, no, you're not," and they need to be punished for that, right? But that's just the way they're made. They're leaders. They're born leaders. They're born to be that way. Now, the self-willed child must be broken and brought into subjection as a child of God to help them in their future walk with Christ. That's our goal, is to raise warriors for Christ. But before he's 2 years old, my father-in-law used to say, you better have them babies in tow before they're 2 years old, before they're out of diapers. Susanna Wesley even said that. She even said, the self-willed child must be broken and brought into subjection before they reach 2. Broken, not the spirit broken, but their will to be so independent without. Because our goal is for them to understand you are their first line of authority and you are the example that they have for God, right? And so you're trying to teach them to submit to a higher authority, which is you, their boss one day, and ultimately to God. God's given that leadership for a purpose, but they got to be able to understand that that leadership comes with great responsibility of being submissive to a holy God. So what do you do with these kind of kids? Well, you've got to you want to break their will, not their spirit. So as they get older, I usually let those type of kids in my classroom, I give them a responsibility, a pretty important responsibility. They resume leadership skills early, so you can even start organizing. You'll see these kids. I have a young girl in my class. I love her. She's got it. She's so clerk too, but she's the one at recess. She's already organized them to, they're like, well, we want to play this. And she's okay, we'll play this. And this is what we're going to do. And they all listen and they have a blast, right? They're already organizing things. So as a parent, you have to help them with that and to surrender to God, to build their character, to lead for his glory. And you start giving them tasks. I was trying to think of some things. So, you know what? We're going to have a family night. And why don't you be in charge of doing A, B, and C, right? This helps give them a direction, a task. I guess what I'm trying to say is find age-appropriate tasks that they can do and assign them those tasks. But they have to be tasks that have a purpose. You just can't say, I want you to clean your room. That's not a task with a purpose. We're talking about outside of the realm of behavior, like planning a neighborhood party for the elderly. Or, hey, we're going to go to the nursing home as a family. I want you to plan what we're going to take. Give them a purpose, I guess what I'm trying to say. Something to watch out for and direct. They usually speak what they think, like we talked about brutally. You have to remember, clerks are not people pleasers. They could care. There's not a people pleaser. I have a grandbaby that is a clerk. And when if it comes in Renee's mind, it's going to come out of Renee's mouth. She is not a people pleaser. She may look at you, and if looks could kill, she may give you that look because she's trying to figure it out. I can see in her such leadership though. My mom, they moved in with my mom temporarily while they're building a house, and mom's picked up on this, and she's given her a little task. And they were over here yesterday with me and mom, and mom looked at her and said, "Now, Rennie, remember, I need you to empty the dryer vent, and that's your job. When you get home, you got to." And she's like, "Yes, Mimi, I'll make she's like, "Yes, I'll make sure I get that done." And she had that on her task. And mom's been giving her the job of folding the napkins and putting the napkins in the silverware and stuff, setting the table. And she showed her how to do it. And she's 3 years old, 4, and she's doing it really good. And I'm like, it's a task with purpose, right? And you want to give them that guidance, because they're not people pleasers, and you're not going to make them be people pleasers. Now, you do need to guide them and help shape them into kindness. I had to help my kids. My Becca, when she was little, was a lot like this, and I had to help guide her. And Hannah's trying to help Rennie and guide her and our others into, when somebody speaks to you, if your mom and dad's with you and you're in a safe place, you need to look at them. If they want to shake your hand, you shake their hand. You can smile. It is okay. You're in a safe place. You're holding your mom's hand. Someone's addressing you at church, whatever. It is appropriate to treat others with respect and kindness. And you have to teach a court this, because they're not people pleasers. They're going to mow over people to get to their task. And this is why so many of them become narcissists. And narcissism is growing because parents are not parenting. They want to be their friends because they don't want to deal with a strong-willed child. They don't want to deal with that behavior. They give in to them because they don't want to hear them crying or whatever. Don't do that. There are many confrontations you have to win as a parent. I tell my kids this all the time as they're dealing with their court kids. I said, you have to win. Choose your battles wisely, but you have to win. Be consistent, and the end goal is in sight. You have to win. There were times when Alan and Hannah got into it. I mean, Hannah was such a strong court child, and she was so good for me, but Alan was gone a lot. So when he came home, she wanted to, I guess, I don't know if it was her way of protecting me in her little mind, or she wanted to show him how upset she was because he went, I don't know, but she just would look at him, and she was horrible with him, and he had to stay firm with her. And there were times I had to just walk out of the house because I couldn't handle it. And he was like, I'm going to win this. And he did. And I'm so glad that I had a strong, godly husband that saw the need. He was cleric, and he took care of the cleric fits, because I'm not cleric member. And I want everybody to be happy. My little sanguine would be like, I want everybody happy. I want to see roses and smiles. They can't do this. And I got a cleric child that's made a stance. I'm not going to eat that, or I'm not going to do that. And then you have a cleric husband like, oh, yes, you are. And I'm going to win. And he did win every time. And that was important, because they need to learn how to submit to that. You can tell really quick when two cleric children are playing together, because they expect fights. It's not a good playmate for a cleric child to have two clerics together, the two strong clerics, because you can't have all chiefs, right? Only one chief in the tribe. And so what happens, and maybe you can relate to this, when you have two strong personalities, two cleric personalities together, what's going to happen is they're going to butt heads. Now, this is what clerics do, and this is how you know if you're being manipulated by your cleric child. They call each other bullies, and that whole term now has gotten so out of whack. If a kid's just being mean to another kid, then they're being bullied, and that's, there's the definition of a bully is totally different than that. Your child's life, if they're not in danger or whatever. But what they're trying to do is to gain you to be on their side. They're building their team, their case against that other kid. And if they can pull other kids in on their team and isolate that kid, then they've won. Then they have out manipulated and out, whatever you want to call it, controlled that other cleric. Then they've won. And they have everybody on their team. They've got everybody believing that the other kid is a bully and mean, or whatever else, or lies or whatever. And they've built a case against them and they've won. Now, a smart parent would be like, let's look at this. Let's step back. Let's look at my kid's temperament. Let's look at that kid's temperament. Let's see what's going on here and help your kids say, I know deep down, that you're saying that kid's bullying, but let's be real. I hear this in fourth grade, third grade. I mean, come on. In a Christian school, there's nobody bullying somebody to the point of death. Okay, not that I've ever known, and younger. Now I'm not saying an older age, but an older, younger kids. If so, not in my realm. Okay. So you need to find out what's really going on in your child's heart. Find out what their temperament is. If it's a choleric or melancholy or something of that nature, those two seem to be the personalities that hang on to things. Then you need to really be asking, okay, we need to work on friendships and what that looks like and what it means. This is how your temperament is, and this is what you're trying to accomplish. That's called manipulating, and that's wrong, and that's a sin. The worst mistake you could do is make your child out to be the victim and to be like all on their side and, go storming into the school or storming into the workplace or whatever they're at and say, how dare these people treat my child like that? That's the worst thing you could do. Because then your child learns, oh, okay, so that worked. I can do that manipulative strategy again and again and again. Instead, you need to do your research. Now, I'm not saying there's not kids who are bullied out there. There are, and you need to be aware of that. But a child that's seriously being bullied is going to be withdrawn. They're going to be showing other symptoms. They're not going to be talking about it and gossiping and all this stuff. It's going to be a little bit different. So I would encourage you, if you really think your child's being bullied to the point where you think someone's going to harm your child, you definitely need to be researching. You need to be looking into their daily life, who they're hanging out with, checking their media, checking social media if they're older, whatever you need to do. This is not what I'm talking about here, okay? Remember, cholerics tend to lie to get around the rules to what they want and need. They don't like being told no, so they lie to gain what they desire in another way. They're very manipulative. They're very smart. And as parents, you've got to be wise and focus on your child's development and the end game, right? And what you want your child to be. You want them to have a successful marriage if it's God's will for them to get married. You want them to have successful relationships in the future, whether it was with your sibling group, with your parents, with with their co-workers or whatever. So you've got to help them to learn that manipulation is not the way to do it, not the Christ-like way to do that. And that's where Tim LaHaye's book, The Spirit Controlled Temperament, is really good. It helps cholerics deal with that. And so just be aware. I think that's my biggest thing here, is just to be aware of your choleric child. Be aware of their manipulative strategies. They're smart. Don't let them fool you. They're smart. Take a step back when they come to you and really pray and ask God. And we're going to be talking about praying for our kids, but really pray and ask God, what's going on here? I'm going to give you a quick example. Hannah had a situation where in high school, she felt like she had no friends. I mean, the girls were really, she just didn't feel like she had any friends. And she was choleric, and she was student body president, and I'm sure class president, she was pushing her way through. She was the captain of the soccer team. She was popular and cute, but Hannah talked a lot about her dad. Once they got over their little splurge when she was little, they were really tight, and she loved her dad, and she would talk a lot about her dad at school, and she came home and we were talking about the girls and this whole thing, and I told her, I said, Hannah, let's pray about it. I didn't jump right in and say, I'm going to school. Well, I was at school. I actually taught at Hannah's high school. I said, I'm going to go to school tomorrow, and I'm going to let those girls have it. Because I'd seen what was going on. I seen the girls and how they would plan things, and they would leave Hannah out, and how it hurt Hannah. But she really didn't care, because she wasn't a people pleaser. Hannah never really cared if you talked about her. She had so much choleric in her that she just had that task and she was going, whatever. I said, let's pray about it. And she was feeling a little bit down about it. And so we began to pray. And, God showed me what was going on. Hannah talking about her dad. Those girls, a couple of the girls in her classroom was from divorced families and different situations to where I felt like that they were jealous of Hannah and her relationship with her dad. It was like pouring salt in the wound. Every time Hannah talked about her dad, here you have a girl whose dad she doesn't even get to see her dad most of the time, like he promises, and another whose dad's just checked out. And so I could see where that Hannah was pouring salt. They didn't want to be around her. And I told her, I said, this is what we need to work on. We worked on that. And you know what? Things began to change. That's what you gain from pulling back, praying about it, and seeking God's wisdom instead of just pulling in, right? They need definite areas of responsibility like we talked about. They need to develop those leadership skills. And prayer is vital. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, prayer is vital when you're dealing with all your kids. And that's why we're going to do a couple lessons, one or more, on praying for your kid, what that looks like, and how to pray for your kid. Well, our time is just about up. I do want to stop here at the caloric. I feel like this is what God wants me to stop here, and we'll hit melancholy and phlegmatic and then start talking about discipline and different things next time. I hope you've got something from this. For the caloric kid, it is very important that if you feel like you've got one of these strong-willed kids, I want to leave you with this. For the caloric, it's very important that you win the battles as the parent. It's important that you pray that they have salvation early. Because of their temperament, the older they get, because they're so independent and one is so self-sufficient driven, that it's hard for them as they get to be adults to give their life to Christ. I'm not saying they can't, but it sure is a lot easier if they get saved when they're little, right? So make sure you're aware of that. The sanguine, make sure that you see them. Also, caloric, make sure you give them responsibilities, things that they can do that is productive, not just menial tasks, but something specific that they can be responsible for, that it's a task because they are task driven. Make sure that's important for their self-esteem and to create that within them. Sanguine children, make sure you see them. Make sure you're loving them. Make sure you give them an audience at times. Make sure you watch them because they are followers, where the caloric's a leader. And you have to help them with their leadership skills and how to treat other people. Sanguines are followers. So make sure that you watch who they're hanging out with, what's going on, and be aware. Anyway, I hope this helps some. I hope that you gain something from this. If nothing else, I hope that you can get into some really good books. This one, for sure, with your kids. But Tim LaHaye's Spirit Controlled Life, as a Christian, as a parent, it's a definite read. I would show you the book, but I've loaned it out. But yeah, get into that. Figure out who you are. Figure out what temperament you have, and how God can take it and take the negative part of that and use it for His glory. Because He did. He created you and your children for a purpose. I know this was a long video. I'm sorry. But hope you got something out of it. Have a great day. Bye.